Exactly.
Rolling.
Okay, this meeting of the Design Review Board is called to order by Lori Ganell at 5:30 PM on February 28, 2024. Start with roll call. Bob DeCroft. Peter Gaffer.
Present.
Lori Ganell here. John Guy.
Here.
Ben Lepley.
Here.
Doug Taylor.
Present.
Ted Schriever.
Here.
Frank Davis absent. And Javier.
Present.
Manuel Stewart.
Me.
Okay, great, we do have a quorum, so we will move on to agenda item 1, discussion regarding all exterior mechanical appliances, i.e. electrical service entrance section, to gain insight into the process to ensure it does not conflict with APS. Anybody want to start on this one?
We have someone here from APS, maybe they.
Yeah, would you like to
Yes.
speak? Thank you.
Most definitely. All right, first time doing one of these meetings, so do I address you as any kind of formal manner or informal?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, let me do introduction. So my name is Dan Daly. I'm the Buckeye Service Planning Supervisor, so you may be asking if I reside in Buckeye and supervise in Buckeye, what am I doing in Douglas? So I'm the interim supervisor of the Douglas dock. The previous leader was otherwise let go end of 2022. So I've been the interim supervisor until the new supervisor has been named, which he has. The new supervisor that you will likely be interfacing with moving forward, his name is Jim McCoy. He started on Monday, but he was unable to actually attend tonight. And so since the issue that's in front of you tonight was raised during my interim tenure, I figured I would go ahead and just be here tonight and speak to it while I'm actually here this week training the new supervisor. So early 2024, it was brought to my attention that the Bisbee Design Review Board had criteria in place for where a service entrance section would be installed on commercial, specifically commercial buildings in the downtown Bisbee area. And the specific location that was addressed was on the front of the buildings. So on the street side, pedestrian side of the building. So I wanted to discuss this, and the main concern from APS and the National Electric Code is that's not a typical location for an SES to be installed. Typically, they're installed on the rear of the building, most notably like an alleyway or nearest the utility power. Typically, we do not have any power along the front of a commercial establishment, especially down in the downtown Bisbee area. So just wanted to come tonight and present you with material that really speaks to the National Electric Code and the APS Electric Service Requirements Manual, ESRM for short. So at APS we have a ton of acronyms, so you're going to hear many probably tonight. So I brought with me a printout. I didn't know what to expect, how many people were going to be here, but I brought a printout or an excerpt from our ESRM that really kind of speaks to the location and preferably not on the pedestrian side or street side of a commercial establishment. The main reason why this is the case is centered around safety. So on commercial SESs, specifically 208 or 480 volt panels, if there is an arc flash, for whatever reason, if a lineman is out there replacing a meter or doing any kind of service work, that arc flash has the potential of going out to a walkway, out to the public, and that would be very detrimental to anybody who was walking by. It would be almost instantaneous death. More so, again, around the safety, if the SES is installed on the backside nearest the utility power, that provides our electrician or lineman or meter shop folks the best escape path in the event of an arc flash. And typically those are not, the alleyways or whatnot are typically not high pedestrian trafficked areas, and it's unencumbered areas. What I mean by that is, again, if a lineman is out there on the backside of an alley and he's performing service work on this panel, arc arc flash takes place, it allows him easy access to get away from the potential danger without being obstructed by pedestrians or cars or what have you. It's free access. So the main code in our ESRM is centered around safety. So typically, not typically, on commercial buildings, the SES goes on the rear. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, and I have some material for your reading enjoyment. It's a lot of pages. But this information is also on our APS.com page. And so we typically instruct all of the electricians, the electrical engineers, whoever's gonna be doing this work, both on the designing side and the installation side, to go to APS.com, download our ESRM, which has any NEC excerpts in it, review it, become familiar with it, and that's ultimately what gets installed. Most municipalities follow APS's ESRM. So that's, those that don't follow the ESRM follow the National Electric Code. So that's why I wanted to bring this to your attention, first and foremost, to make sure that there's alignment with both NEC and APS.
So can somebody refresh me about what is it in our guidelines that,
Yeah, I think this discussion came up from a residential property for one thing.
Right.
But that would work for us, I believe, to have the service in the rear or on the side, because we don't want it on the
Oh.
visual side.
Yes, okay.
The thing that I'm wondering is if there isn't an alley or a service drive or something behind it, is that still where you would want to install that service panel?
So in the event that there's not an alley or anything of that nature, there's typically what is called a meter room. So a designated part of the structure that is allocated for metering and for main disconnect work.
Okay.
And so if so, there's requirements in here around what a metering room should look like as well. The overall dimension for safe working and everything.
And some of the buildings we're dealing with, I'm sorry to interrupt, this is kind
Yeah,
of
that's
informal
fine.
tonight, but some of the buildings we're dealing with were designed before electricity even existed.
Yes.
So I don't know if they have service rooms or if they've cobbled them in at some point and if they've done it appropriately for the code now.
Yes.
And I guess our major issue is that if it's visible from the street essentially,
Yes.
that is the issue. There was a residential property, and I'll just quickly, I think, refresh my memory. There was Javi can help us on this. There was a residential property where APS was requiring service on the front facade, I remember, residential.
Okay.
Yes.
And they wanted to put it on the side, and APS said, well, I don't think there was a judgment on it, but
Okay.
I think the idea was that APS would have preferred it on the side. That would have been our choice, right?
I
That
think
we would have liked
APS
it.
wanted it on the front,
On the
Oh, they
front.
want-
and
They
we
wanted-
wanted it on the
We-
side,
we
so
wanted
that's
that,
why we're here
that's right.
today.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it was a residential.
Residential,
yeah,
exactly.
issue there.
Okay.
So we just want to clear it up in the historic district, we do not want them on the front of the house,
yeah,
Sure.
houses,
or the commercial buildings?
or commercial
Yes.
buildings, no buildings in
So
the
I
historic
actually
district.
dealt with this issue in my house when it was just finished, and because I had called APS and had them come do a meter placement before I set it. They put it on the front of the house, and I wish I remember the gentleman's name because he was super helpful.
Yeah.
We found a location, his concern was that on the side of the house, because of the overhead connection,
Mhm.
on the side of the house, if we didn't place it right, it would have crossed over the roof. And he said, over the roof is not gonna work. If we can't do it without putting it so that the cable doesn't cross over the shed roof, which is my
Mhm.
patio,
Mhm.
it can't be placed there. So that was the big issue. We found a place that was very close to the corner. It worked height-wise and distance-wise, so it was all good. But that was the issue with,
Okay, well and so it was not on the front, correct?
we did not put it on the front.
Yeah, so that's what we were aiming at, and I
Okay.
think we're on the same,
Yeah,
from what you're saying,
Yeah.
we're on the same path, we
Yes.
must be muddy about it, I think.
Yes, so the preference is definitely on the side of the house. Typically near a garage or, you know, a carport. That's generally where these FCSs will go. There are exceptions where if there's some kind of a conflict, a site conflict, whether it be, I don't know, an existing overhead line or another vertical structure of some nature that does not allow for easy access, easy maintenance, then there may be a discussion with APS to possibly put it on the front of a structure, residential only, to allow for, you know, resolving that conflict. But generally speaking, like 98% of the time, we want on the residential, the meter on the side of the house.
I
And
think
this,
we're on the same
oh,
path.
sorry,
No,
and
yeah.
this one was an issue because of the fence. They moved their fence back, the
Yes.
fence behind the meter, so I guess they didn't have to pass the fence. Is that
So
a thing? Because those are digitally read. Is
they
there a
are,
reason for that?
yeah, so all meters that APS employs now are AMI meters, so they're all read electronically through cellular service. But there could be times where if for whatever reason the connection gets disturbed, we do have to send out a meter tech to do a manual read on that particular meter. So there's still accessibility issues. We do not like panels being behind a fence. And that's really mainly because of not only accessibility issues, but there could be the potential of dogs
Yeah,
in the backyard. And that could be dangerous for anybody, you know, entering into a backyard to read a meter and be attacked by a dog. So when there is a fencing concern, we try to work with the homeowner to say, put a notch, like a niche into your fence to allow the SES to be free and clear, not in the backyard, so we can have, you know, readily available access. But there are times where customers, you know, they will kind of push back, and we'll try and work with the customer as best as possible. And I'm not saying that's a hard and fast rule, sometimes we do allow it to be behind the fence. There have been those exceptions made.
Avi, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Couple of minor things.
Yes.
Is there any prohibition about putting an enclosure around the meter that's not locked, that disguises it?
Yes, there is.
Is a prohibition?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
well,
That's a
uh-oh,
what's
code issue.
code issue there too.
There is, yeah, you cannot enclose an SES
Okay.
and essentially, potentially keep it from being accessible.
Okay, but I mean, if it's freely openable, the door to the.
Yeah, it cannot have another structure outside of it that
Okay.
aesthetically would make that more pleasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs
That
to be
is
free and
not-
clear. Yeah.
The second thing, I was educated by Joe Ward, his predecessor, that coming from Pennsylvania, it never occurred to me that people would put breaker boxes outside. But when I came here, I found that everybody put their breaker boxes outside. And Joe said,
Yes.
you don't have to, but people just do. Is that correct? I'm not questioning Mr. Ward, but you can in fact separate the meter from the breaker pad. Is that correct?
So, not an APS service territory, so
Oh.
the panel needs to be an exterior rated panel.
Oh, okay.
You can have a sub panel that
Right.
comes out the main panel, and you can have the sub panel located on the interior. But we don't have any governance over that, it's just the metering cabinet itself. But it has to be like a USARC rating, which is an exterior rating, which
Okay.
is basically weatherproof.
So for all practical purposes, most of your breakers are gonna be outside?
Yes,
In a box?
yes,
Don't you guys
Yeah.
have a pre-approved meter list?
we do.
And do any of them have just a single switch so that you would be forced to have a sub panel in the house and it's just a main breaker switch and a meter?
No, current standards is you have a main disconnect, and then you have all of the majority of your house meter breakers in the same panel. So that's what's on our pre-approved meter list now. So are those exterior rated multi-breaker main disconnect panels, so.
Is it clear to us what commercial is versus residential?
What's that?
Isn't, well, this is maybe a question for,
No, it usually is, it comes with the listing of the property, whether it's commercial or residential.
Yeah.
What's your definition of commercial?
It's whatever the municipality or the AHJ zones the property for.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you a question about that residential application that came through? Why didn't they think it was okay to move that fence back like 6 feet or
That's
whatever?
what I'm curious.
The panel was already there in that same spot, I don't know why didn't they just switch it out for the same spot, you know? I don't know what the
So
issue was there.
the
It
code-
was
the
a
code
fence, I think it was
changed.
a fence the whole time. Once they moved the fence, then they were able to put it back in the side of
Same
the house
spot.
instead of having it in front
Oh,
of the
okay, well,
building.
that sounds like it was a good workaround.
Mhm.
So I don't know what we're doing,
No, I think-
that we're on board with.
Yeah, we're in
Okay.
agreement, we're in agreement, yes.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I think it was probably your texts and stuff that were saying that it was gonna be a big deal, that's probably why we're here today.
That's,
I think that's what we remember, so
Sounds-
maybe we need to get the staff, your staff on the same page as we are.
yes,
Or
Because
we get on
they're the
there.
ones that were fighting about it, saying, no, it's gonna be here and it's
okay,
gonna be a big deal, so.
and I will definitely do
And
that.
because like Tombstone is gonna be another place, there's a lot of historic places where you gotta,
Yes,
it's gonna be different than any other town, of course,
yes.
you know.
I did have an awakening, an epiphany moment when I went to Tombstone for a visit, and I found out that, yeah, most of those historic buildings, the metering gear, yeah, is inside the building,
The meter itself.
the meter itself.
Wow.
Now, once it's there, it's grandfathered in there. We're not gonna go and force the issue, but when that particular owner decides to do a panel upgrade, or, you know, they have more
Right.
load, then by code,
Yeah,
they then have to make it right.
yeah.
And so that's, I think most owners, Bisbee and Tombstone and the surrounding area, are likely going to not wanna do a panel upgrade because of that reason. They're grandfathered in. And panels nowadays are very expensive and long lead items. They're hard to get,
Yeah.
so.
are there times when a solar installation requires movement of the main service in the house?
Not typically, but the electrician that is installing the solar, they may come on site and convince that homeowner that they need to do a panel upgrade for various reasons. And if they do, and if the customer or the homeowner then agrees, then everything they do thereafter has to be up to code,
Right.
and then has to be, yeah, a new panel.
Can I suggest that you and Javi exchange contact information?
Yes, yeah.
And if you guys can figure out, because Javi's really our representative on the hands-on portion,
Perfect, okay.
and then he could bring it back if it becomes an issue, but
Yeah.
since those people, it sounds like they worked it out,
Yes, they're
and
ready.
so I think that issue is resolved, am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it sounds like the disconnect is on my end, on our end.
yeah,
So-
I think it was.
I don't know,
One
but
of the
it
texts was saying
doesn't
that.
matter, but
Yeah.
I think, it's a fact of life,
Yeah.
and these old houses with modern, amenities
Yeah,
are gonna have to go to a 200 amp or whatever and get
Yes.
new, a lot of them will get new, panels because a new service,
yeah.
because they have upgraded whatever.
Yes.
That would be great if you guys
Yes,
can just, I don't even know if it'll happen, but if it does,
yeah.
the new Jim McCoy, you could give him
Yep,
that.
yeah, definitely get in contact with Javi as well.
Yes, thank you.
And then, another little tidbit while I'm here, so the Bisbee fire.
Yeah,
And tragic, and I got to put eyes on it last week. And so I was out there with our team in, met the mayor, and there are some concerns with the existing panels there on the two structures that were damaged in the fire.
Yeah.
We're not going to request those panels to be changed out, because they don't look like they were damaged by the fire. I don't know what water damage they sustained, but as of right now, they look like they're in good condition. The only concern is the risers that are coming up out of the two main panels. I think it's 30 west and 31 west. The top of the weatherhead,
I think it's 32.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, they alternate. The risers might be damaged. So if the risers have to be replaced, that does not constitute a need to replace the entire panel. So we're trying to work with the business owners to make this as inexpensive as possible. But the panels do need some adherence. What I mean by that is they're missing their address tag. And so we're going to have the homeowners, we're gonna ask the business owners to affix the address on the panel. It's like a little aluminum tag that gets riveted to the outside of the box.
Mhm.
And essentially that it just allows us in the middle of the night to quickly identify a particular address in the need, if there's ever a need to pull a meter or whatever. And I believe there's only, we pulled 7 meters that night. Of the 7, for safety reasons, 30 and 32, and then the 2 adjacent ones. And then I think 32 had 3 or 4 meters associated to its address. But we pulled 7 meters. Of the 7 meters that we pulled, I think only 4 or 5 panels needed the address label affixed to it. So no big deal, and as of right now, panels look to be not damaged. So we're going to work with those business owners to restore their power, the adjacent ones, to restore their power as soon as the structures are deemed safe.
Right.
So, just wanted to give you that quick update.
Thank
While-
you. That's
while I'm
great.
here.
Thanks,
Yeah.
yeah, appreciate it.
On that, I'll probably implement something on that, when we do our fire inspections, we'll
Okay.
just make sure that that's one of our requirements too.
Oh,
Because the
perfect.
only time that I really go on there is if they get a permit and that's, fire,
Yeah,
you know. So
Okay.
I'll make that something that we could do on our part to help you guys out in that process as
perfect.
well.
I'll leave this with you then, Hardy. This has that requirement and the details around it. So it gives you the specifics, so if you wanna pass that on to the business owner, of what they need to do, or, have the electrician do, then that would be good, and then it contains all the residential and commercial stuff as well,
Yeah,
so,
because it is code, so.
yes,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I had one comment and minor question. I had installed myself, under the supervision of the building inspector, 2 200-amp services in 2 separate properties. One was a brand new install, the other was an upgrade of the existing.
Okay.
I have to say that the underground feed was a hell of a lot easier than the overhead.
Yeah,
And I'm sort of sharing this with my confederates here.
sure.
But my problem, I think our problem in general is that no one even wants to think about an underground feed in Old
Yeah.
Bisbee, because you require 24-inch cover for your underground feed.
Yes, approximately, yes.
Yeah, and that's difficult to achieve almost anywhere in Old
Yeah.
Bisbee. I managed it. It was a deep trench, and it was a lot of work, but we did it, and the difference to the look of the house is, in my money, night and day. No disrespect to your wires, but,
Yeah. Oh,
it's
no,
just
no.
the whole appearance.
Yeah.
And installing the panel and everything else, I mean, that was the first one I did, and then when I did an upgrade, Joe was all over me like cheap suit. It was amazing, how many mistakes I made on the second one.
Yeah,
However, my question is it possible to get a waiver by encasing in concrete or whatever, an underground feed to a residence in Old Bisbee? It probably isn't gonna happen very often, but,
yeah.
when we get a major renovation of a house or something, or a new construction, I don't think we require it to have an underground feed. Like modern developments, everything's underground. I don't think we require it in Old Bisbee, because why? I mean, probably not gonna be possible, but if it were possible to get some sort of waiver or some relief, because rather than jackhammering into rock.
Yeah, it's a boulder.
Is there anything in your regulations that allow it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It's not to say that there's not,
No.
I'm just not aware of that.
Right.
Yeah, normally the depths of our conductors is centered around, again, the potential for safety. So
Yes.
to minimize dig-ins,
Yeah,
so if a customer wants to plant a tree or do some irrigation, piping,
yeah,
it's deep enough to where it's not gonna pose an issue for a potential dig-in
yeah.
and death. So I don't know, again, if there's a variance or exception to that, if you concrete encase it. I do know the only time we concrete encase is when we do more than 2 5-inch conduit for what is called our feeder.
Mhm.
That's our high voltage
Yes.
conductor. So anytime we do more than 2 5s, we do concrete encasement or concrete bedding or cover. So let me, can I circle back around with this
Certainly,
scheme?
I just,
To let you know?
I mean, it would make Bisbee nicer if we could
Yes.
put some of this underground.
Great.
Particularly, when someone's doing a major,
Yeah,
we had one a couple of months ago where the guy was taking on this complete wreck.
yes.
I don't know how he's gonna do it, but he is. And, something like that, for somebody like that, putting all that effort into it,
Oh, sure.
being able, and I don't think there's an existing service, or if it is, it's completely defunct,
Yes.
that if one could connect. As I say, from my own experience, it was much easier to do it underground.
Yeah.
Working with you guys was actually, I forget the lady's name, but she was, if you said her name, she was out of Douglas.
There, we have Monica, Lorena, and Erica, Antonia.
Antonia,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
And she's no longer in this dock.
Oh, okay.
She's
She
now-
was great to work with,
Yes.
and it was so easy. It was just so easy to
Yeah.
bowl through I put the conduit in,
Yeah.
ran it up. I had way fewer issues than I did when I was doing it.
Oh, for sure. No, underground, honestly, I mean, that's the direction that APS encourages
Okay,
municipalities to go in. The city of Buckeye, so where I'm from, they're looking to do an underground program. So in downtown Buckeye, they're wanting to get every bit of overhead and convert it to underground.
wow.
And so they want to partner with APS and do like a joint development agreement with the city to where APS picks up some of this cost.
Yes,
Because underground is more reliable.
yes.
Doesn't get struck by lightning, doesn't get hit by cars. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
some of the above grade equipment that ties into the underground can be hit by a car, but generally it's more reliable because it's not being exposed to the elements.
Mhm.
And that underground conductor will last anywhere from 25 to 30 years before it starts going bad. So that's a good chunk of time.
And from our purview, which is aesthetics primarily,
Yes.
it would be a great thing. I just don't know if it's possible.
Oh,
with
no.
The rock we have,
Yeah.
Oh, I know, yeah,
That's, why I asked the question, is there any
Yes.
relief that,
Yeah.
so, okay,
to
let me.
encourage it? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think we'd ever mandate it, but to encourage it,
You never know.
you never know.
If it was easier, we might be able to do it.
That's true. Well, and I did hear from our T-man who have to support, the city of Bisbee on anytime poles go down. And there's a lot of poles going up Mule Mountain, is that right?
Yeah.
To feed the microwave towers up there, but just all the way up the hills within Bisbee. And they have, they voiced their concerns at, how old those poles are getting. And they can't get their trucks out there, so they have to hike it up this hill or mountain, and then have to put on their pole climbing spikes and literally climb the pole. And that's an outdated
Yeah.
effort, and so they are wanting, they're out there with you, they wanna get rid of the poles, they wanna do everything underground. But it would be an enormous effort in this area with the boulders,
Yeah.
that you alluded to, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's also feeds into the wildfire issues.
Yes.
That's how town of Paradise burned, is some power lines knocked over and started a wildfire.
Mhm.
It's safer.
It is very.
So in high winds.
And yeah, if there is a workaround in some fashion or something,
Yeah,
you know, I think as a city, and this board would be probably the genesis of that.
Okay.
We should look into that
okay, perfect.
wherever we can.
Yeah, we're feasible, for sure.
Yeah.
And then what is that criteria that I can pass on to you that we can start implementing, you know, for Bisbee?
If there's any help, the gas company puts some of the lines above ground. A lot of gas lines are exposed in Bisbee, not Barry.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there are handrails on the
Oh, yeah,
stairs.
they are, right.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Not everywhere.
Not everywhere,
Some-
not on your stairs apparently.
Oh, no, there's a lot of very exposed gas lines in town.
We're just waiting for the whole city to go.
No, I don't want that.
No, we don't either. Well, thank you so much. Oh, I'm not the chair.
Yeah. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you for.
I have one more thing, it's just, we'll, in the historic district, we would never want them on the front, and we just wanna make that clear with your team.
Oh,
We don't even let like mini splits, conduit run in the front of houses and stuff like that. We implemented a new code on that too, so.
perfect.
So that's just one
Yeah.
thing, and I'm glad that, I'm sorry that if we did waste your time, but I just,
No,
if we all wanna be on the same page
yeah,
with
sounds,
you guys, and,
yeah,
you know, there might be a little leeway to give Bisbee, and Old Bisbee in general,
yeah,
because of the way the town was built and stuff, so.
yes. No, I'm definitely glad we're on the same page, for sure. I'll, take this back to the Douglas team and the team in and kind of level set with them. And then, you know, most definitely see if we can do any kind of a workaround or, you know, shallow up the depth of that trench, to promote more undergrounding, you know, within Bisbee, so.
Steel and concrete cased steel conduit instead of
Yeah.
I put in PVC, you know, and.
Yeah, PVC is, I do know that is a standard, we try not to do any kind of steel.
Oh, it is, okay.
It just poses more of a safety risk, if that cable were to fall, it energizes that entire
Mhm.
cable run, so,
But, you
yeah.
know, cost a casing around a PVC conduit would be.
Yeah, that could be,
Pretty
yeah.
sound,
Yeah,
pretty sound,
so,
just a thought.
So
Okay, yeah.
Javi is our point person, so
Okay.
you don't have to come back before us, but if you could get that, you know, feedback to him, that'd be great.
perfect, I will most definitely will. And I don't have a business card, but I have a dot card, it's an electronic business card, so you just have to take a picture of it and it gives you all my information.
Okay, awesome. I forgot my card, so I'll just give you my
Okay,
info right
okay.
here.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
No,
very
thank you
Yeah.
guys very much, it was nice meeting all of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
much. We're not that bad.
No, I enjoyed the drive over here and the rain, it was, yeah. So, I love it, and I've stayed at the Queen Line RV Park for a couple weeks while I've been down here, just FYI, I love it. I
Yeah,
don't know if you guys know the owner, but I love that little RV park.
That's great.
yeah, it is nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
All right,
so,
great.
great, thank you
Thank
guys.
you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, so we can move on
I appreciate
to,
it, man.
moving on to agenda item 2, discussion and possible approval of the matrix for window types.
May I start off?
Of course, you may, Mr. Matrix.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Matrix.
I wanted to address Bob's letter at the back of the packet. The significant designation is there are certain buildings within the historic district, primarily commercial buildings like the Pythian Castle, you know, some of those that are considered significant. And so those are like untouchable.
Demand extra attention, in other words.
Yeah, they have to be exactly, you know,
I'd say like the convention center
yeah, yeah,
would be one.
yeah. I think most of Main Street, from,
Yeah.
probably from the convention center to Castle Rock is probably all significant. I don't know, I have a whole, this is something that we have available in City Hall that is the book of, you know, what's what here, but significant is called out. The other one that didn't have
Thank you.
anybody asking about, thanks a lot, was the, let me look on my matrix to tell you what
The
it's.
inaccessible,
what it-
undetermined?
Inaccessible, undetermined. From my understanding from SHPO, is that those can be turned to contributing by, if they have remained in their original form, or if they have upgraded with, like materials, like wood windows, like we've discussed before. And those can then go to contributing, or I guess non-contributing if they come before us. But when they did the survey, they didn't, they just didn't get to all the buildings.
Gotcha.
Some were inaccessible, some were up behind something, you know, and you couldn't see them. I think back then, visibility was an important issue.
Okay.
And so those are the two that are kind of not in our usual purview, because normally we're talking about contributing and non-contributing.
Right.
Yeah,
And new construction.
I did have a couple of others, I think. One was on the siding.
Well, we'll do
Oh,
the
I'm
windows
sorry.
first, because the
Oh.
siding is a different item.
Yeah,
Oh.
I saw your comments on
Yeah.
siding, I thought
So that's
Okay.
number four.
that could
Number
easily
two.
be
Okay.
added to it.
Got it.
Yeah.
So,
So with the windows,
yeah,
are we just gonna go down this list? Is that how we prefer to do this? Or
I don't know.
just throw out comments based on what people have?
I have a general sort of, take a few steps back comment.
Yeah,
And, number one, I want to thank Doug for doing this.
yeah,
because
absolutely.
I stuck him with it, so, the last thing I want to do.
Oh, he's aware.
But, taking a step back, and actually, it's something that you said a few months ago, when we were talking about the high school, and there was a big issue about what is this project? Is it preservation, maintenance, or renovation, or adaptive
Adaptive
reuse, and so
reuse.
on, so on. And then I looked at the application package. We don't ask the applicant to really address that. And the matrices don't really address that. And I'm wondering, I'm just throwing it out there, whether or not we should actually take that step back and look at the application and say, okay, Mr. Applicant, Ms. Applicant, Madam Applicant, do you consider this preservation? Do you consider this maintenance? Do you consider, we might not agree with that classification or that grouping, but maybe if we do that, then if they're saying to us, well, I want to preserve this house, then it sets up a whole different type of review than if they say, I'm just maintaining it, or if they are renovating it, like the poor fellow on Youngblood a few months ago. That was, yeah, and we've never done that, at least I don't think so. And I know that you took issue with this with the high school, and rightly so. And I'm wondering whether before we necessarily get into the weeds with this, we shouldn't actually say, you know, are we gonna have different rules for what the intent is?
But I do, addressing that, I think that if this was a reference material that everyone could access, I don't know if, and I'm kind of looking to you and to Emmanuel, I know I used this all the time when I was in City Hall, but I don't know if the average citizen making an application can use it, and I don't know if NINA helps them determine. I know sometimes we have a question mark on our, you know, we don't know if it'll say, I think we had one a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago, that said contributing, non-contributing, you know, there was a question mark. If, I think everything's been called out. Now, the ones that are inaccessible, undetermined, they haven't been. They really could go in a looser direction than we've been going, unless they want to get on the tax break. The first two, significant and contributing, which are the sacred ones, are pretty clear who that is. So if they want to say, you know, adaptive reuse, it can happen, but it has to, the facade, you know, our portion of it is going to have to remain exactly the same. And I know this is you know, there's a sort of gray area that happened between 79 and probably 2000 or something, where things just changed, and you know, people were, yeah, it looks good, you know, and I think we're tightening it up, and I think there is a risk lately, from what, just sitting here, that there's an erosion of the edges of what's the sacred stuff that, and I hate to keep using sacred, but I can't think of a better word, the prominent, important, let's say. You know, that's where I've always said, well, that shouldn't have any vinyl windows. New construction, you know, I think we've approved vinyl windows, let's say, on, you know, just going through the windows. I think with Todd's, we allowed him, you know, with that Youngblood Hill, I think we allowed him because it will save the building. It actually was a contributing building, but I think we allowed him to put in different windows. I would like to tighten that up so that it's not just up to one board meeting or one assessment from somebody, you know, saying I want to do adaptive reuse, because that would have a lot less restrictions on it.
Yeah, because my question was about, for example, a contributing structure not allowing a metal-clad wood window, which we have been allowing when they're replacing windows. So we're saying we would not allow, there would be no exceptions to that.
Right, I think that, and that what I was going by was what the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines are. I didn't bring that with me tonight, but this was based on, you know, my answers on this for the first two were based on that, you know, they have to contribute, to be significant or contributing. Both of those, I believe, have the tax break. The tax break is meant to give the people some cash flow that makes it so they can work on the building and bring it up to the standard, because, you know, this is an interesting little puzzle that we have here. Economic development, tourism, you know, they're all connected into this one historic thing. There's, you know, we don't have an ocean, or we have a mountain, but nobody, you know, really cares about that. But we don't have, yeah, but I mean, you know, those are great, but nobody's coming to climb the mountain. It's not, you know, it's not Banff, Alberta. But, and nobody's going to the beach here. So they're coming here for this quaint little town with this interesting architecture and quirky shops and all, you know, it's all part of that. And I think we lose that. I think there are a lot of, air quote, contributing structures. I know there are some significant structures that have put in vinyl windows. I've seen it, you know, they're not on the front maybe, but they're in there. And I think that is the erosion that sort of was the genesis of asking about having a matrix, so that people, it's clear to people.
Oh, yeah.
So can I chime in?
Yeah.
So on the adaptive reuse thing versus preservation versus restoration or renovation, all these words, the reason I brought that up is not to have any different sets of rules or being more lenient or less lenient. It's more about for us to understand what the intent of the applicant was. You know, so just so we could frame what,
Yeah,
you know, what they're doing, like,
yeah, that's great.
so Copper Queen Library, if they're redoing the stucco or something, that would be preservation, right? So, you know, versus a high school where the old use just isn't useful anymore. So we would anticipate, you know, a change in the architecture, not to be more lenient, but just
That's just framing the argument.
For the adaptive reuse.
Yeah.
And then it can be.
Just
used
framing
as
the argument,
residential. Yeah,
for us, you know.
yeah.
And Copper Queen Library is a good example. Last year, they met code on their rail height, and they came pretty close. It's a little off, but
They did it,
yeah, it was pretty good what they did. And, you know, I think that whether, I don't know if that's, meeting code issues as adaptive reuse or not, but it can be done.
I can have the floor for a minute. So being a new member, I'm sure everybody was sent the same document, but Nina sent this to me just a few weeks ago. And this actually addresses the significant versus insignificant and contributing, or contributing is the category, but there is significant properties, and that would be, for instance, in my neighborhood there, the DeGrazi houses, it has work going on it. According to this, that would be categorized as significant. I don't know if it's listed any places that, but it was a person that's significant to Arizona's history, lived in the house, therefore it potentially is significant. So what this does though is very much defines all that. It defines the significant and what contributing means, and it also provides for alternate materials. So, long story short, I went and looked at the Department of Interior's information as well. This is just a derivative of that. I mean, it is pulled from that document. So a lot of that document as well allows for alternate materials. And some of the justification that they give is if it's not possible, you know, there's a slightly different verbiage, but if it's not financially feasible for a building to you know, so the building is not gonna be worth that much if you put that much into it, kind of thing. So I believe that this is important and it's a good tool for us to use. It's a order to read because it's 47 pages and, but it has all the information that we're talking about right now. Having said all that, there's also some stuff that's going on in my life as far as trying to insure my property that makes all of this a bit irrelevant right now. So I can't get insurance on the house I just built, and that's because of our current hazard zone. So we did have a conversation last night with the Firewise people and with our fire chief and lieutenant, and there are some efforts that are going on to try to clear the record, or at least make sure that the right information's out there. But right now, if you have insurance, don't cancel it. If you're trying to get insurance, it would be a good time to wait and get on board with trying to clear some of this stuff. But it doesn't seem pertinent for us to be pushing for more flammable materials when we have an issue with the fire load in the area currently. And it seems to me like this is something that we should be looking at to clarify. And when we do, this document and this document have to talk to each other. They can't, right now they don't.
No,
And I know that this is a
Yeah.
Rev Zero and it's a great starting point. But to push for more fire load in the city is, right now, it just seems like it's a bad idea. I'm not saying this is not something we should be working on. I absolutely think we should be working on it. But the discussion at this point, in my mind, should include a fire department, and it should include at least a council member or someone that's in our city council or government, because this affects everybody and every house. And I think it will be worked out, but it's certainly not worked out right now. I'm 3 weeks into the process, and there are no insurance companies that will cover us.
And I know that we were here, oh, that was a council meeting, and you were there. One of the hotel owners, right after the fire, was the fire update or something, council meeting, said that his insurance company had just sent him a check and said, you're done, you know, we're not gonna cover you. I'm just wondering, is this any different than any other, I'm sort of blinders here in this
No,
city.
it's not. It's
The
not.
whole country is like this.
I'll give you a little bit of history because I'm learning it as we're going along. So I have found someone in Tucson, whether you're aware or not about the Mount Lemon fire that happened 10 years ago maybe. Okay, when that fire happened, the insurance companies refused to insure anybody on Mount Lemon. They canceled everybody, they wouldn't allow anybody to renew. A single individual, and I'm talking to this individual, and she's a fantastic person, she pinged the fire chief for the area on Mount Lemon. And the data that the insurance companies had, that they were evaluating the preparedness and the fuel load in the area and all of these response times, all of that stuff that you need to build this risk matrix. The data that they had was incorrect based on the fire chief's data. They were at a much lower risk than what the insurance company, well, that could be the case for us. It's, the discussion I had last night with Kevin, our lieutenant, is he's even fielded questions from insurance companies that have us listed as an all-volunteer fire department. Well, if that information's out there, yeah, no, I wouldn't insure this place either, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, and
So
yet some
exactly.
people are pushing that, it's an odd, I know that's probably different information than they have. Did the Mount Lemon people get insured then?
Yeah, she was able to basically petition and say, look, this is the actual data, this is Forest Service data, this is local fire authority data, this is whatever that consisted of. And here's the actual risk number, and the insurance company then allowed, I don't know what that did to anybody's rates, but that allowed the insurance companies to move forward without that massive risk.
Did they actually, because I remember when you came for you're talking about Mayor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you came in for the windows, I think we went with steel clad or aluminum clad or
Still
something.
clad, yeah, aluminum clad.
Is that, and they're still not thinking that's good enough from what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh.
I'm not, no one has said we shouldn't be adding more fuel to the fire. That's me. That's John
Okay.
Guy saying
Okay,
to add,
I get
to completely eliminate the option for concrete board, for instance, or metal doors, or whatever it is. But in my case, that is something that we've built in, so I'm at 8 rejections so far. But that's something that we're building into the information that we're providing to the carriers in trying to find insurance. Is I was approved for concrete board, I've got a metal roof, I've got metal doors. All of these things have a place on the matrix that they filled out for individual properties. That's not helping right now because no one's looking at an individual property number. They're looking at 85603.
okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but that's not to say that all of these things wouldn't help the individual. If we get the right information out there about the town and our current accurate risk matrix number, if we have that information out there, then at least we can talk to an agent and say, hey, look, I do have fire retardant materials on my house. I do have these things that I've done to try to harden it. So my comment now is, let's work on this. I think that would be a great idea. Let's make sure that the 2 documents talk, and this one is an excellent document. If you've not looked at it, I suggest you do, because it was eye-opener.
Yeah.
I want to say that, we probably should add this as an agenda item for future meetings, so we can actually.
I would like to see that, whatever they did in Mount Lemon,
Yeah.
happen here. I know that Jimmy and Kevin did a
We're working
thing
on it.
last night at the library, and I wasn't able to attend, but the problem I see right now is that we keep having, every month, there's, 6 people sitting here wanting us to tell them how they can do it. And if we're going to continue with an historic district and/or the tax break, we have to keep a degree of flammability to materials, I'm afraid. If that, you know, I would like to see the fire department talk to them and get the overall designation changed, or the risk changed. But I don't know how we do that and continue to do business as a board.
So in the national guideline, in the Interior Department's guideline, and in this document as well, it does talk about, it talks about the visually similar, or the, from the street view, or, so I mean, materials from the street look different than if you go up and tap on them with your knuckle, you know, definitely. And there are some fantastic materials, and as a board, we can also consider street view and something that we're doing for
Yeah.
approvals. You know, my whole back of my house is on the mountain. I've got, you know, large, beautiful 100-year-old trees. I don't wanna cut them down. The back of my house, as far as I'm concerned, and if I get to talk to an agent that will approve me, will be an arguing point. I've got fire retardant materials on the back of my house.
Yeah.
The front of my house is not the case. It's bold and beautiful, and it looks like old Bisbee, and that's cool. And maybe that's a consideration for us as well, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and for some historic districts, the main consideration is the easement, right? It's like, what can you see from the street? And they actually are more lenient about what you do with the part of your house that people don't
Some
see.
do, yeah.
Kind of makes sense.
Pasadena's that way,
Yeah.
which is, you know, part of Los Angeles, but, yeah, they were mainly concerned with what you could see from the street.
And unfortunately, for this issue right now, where I come from, Provincetown and Nantucket, it's the hand of the craftsman. It's not even, you know, it's, if you replace the windows, they have to be handmade windows. They don't, you know, in Provincetown, that's not the case, but in Nantucket it is. And it's, you know, they have to be made with the tools that you know, originally made the place. It's a very tough, I know they probably don't have the same.
Is it a more affluent community as well? I
Yeah,
think
well,
people
it's,
can afford to
but
get it, you know.
we really shouldn't be considering that.
I understand that, but
Because
it is
that's
a
always,
consideration.
you know, the forever house is
So
always
in
the
my
issue.
house, when it was originally built, the clapboard that was put on the pallet wall, they used too long a nail, so they bent them over so that they could wallpaper it on it. So I'm not sure if craftsmen work on my house.
No,
Yeah,
They
right.
would assemble.
Yeah, right.
I do remember, I toured your house before anything happened, I remember.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of these minor shacks are, the wall thickness, if they haven't done anything to it, is 3/4 of an inch or an inch, and there's no insulation. They wallpapered the inside of the board and put a batten on the outside, and that, you've seen that, and I've seen it. It certainly doesn't meet any kind of code we have now for anything, but I think you have a good point.
I do too, and I think that, what I think is that there need to be exceptions to some of these things, right? So, say you're, right up against BLM land and the fire is gonna come right up to your house, the back of your house, maybe you should be able to have something that protects you back there, you know? They used to hold the fire on.
So can we like petition to have a fire official come in and talk to us?
Oh,
and see
they
if that's
would, that's not a problem.
I mean, I think that would be a benefit.
Yeah.
Well, we get some,
Maybe
at
we
least
can-
their recommendations for safety, right, like, things to consider. I
Sure.
understand that isn't our.
Well, no, I'm
main
not
purview,
looking
but-
to make us Nantucket at all, or,
Yeah,
but I do think that if Jimmy and Kevin came to our next meeting, which I think is in 2 weeks.
yeah.
A week from
Is it?
today.
Oh, it's a
yeah,
week-
you're right,
it's a
yeah,
week.
that's right, it's Thursday.
These
I
are
mean,
happening a
Wednesday,
little
next
too
Wednesday.
often.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh.
but we like each other.
yeah, we should just have beer when we have.
Yeah.
If we could have them, Emmanuel, could you get them to perhaps come to the next meeting and discuss?
We need to add the.
I can talk to them.
Yeah,
The agenda isn't out yet, is it? For the
This-
next meeting.
It's probably
Close.
tomorrow.
I think but I think you can have like up to 24 hours notice.
Yeah, I think, well, I think that Nina needed,
This
Forget
came out
how
on,
many.
this one came out on Friday, so that was obviously within,
Yeah, they usually come out on Friday,
I know
which is
we-
tomorrow.
yeah,
no?
no, it's 2 days.
Oh, I keep
Yeah.
thinking it's Thursday.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you just wish.
The other tomorrow.
So,
The other
Tomorrow's
tomorrow.
I know that we had an issue when the fire came out because we wanted to have a meeting about
Mhm.
the buildings right away. And it's, by the time you notice it, it's, you know, it would have been now.
So this is on our agenda for tonight, is to discuss future agenda items. So when we get to this, we can bring this back
It might
up.
not happen in the next one, it might have to
But
wait.
it might, if
till
you
later.
could reach them tomorrow and they said, sure, you don't mind going, then we could put it on the agenda, right?
If we can put it on, then, I know Nina knows, I never knew how long it was.
Well, I think it's one of the most important things I've heard here for a long time.
Mhm.
We've got to come to grips with it
Yes,
to make sure that.
Oh, yeah, it impacted us all, everybody.
Yeah.
I didn't know how much it impacted me.
I just got insurance on a house for 85603, but it's not in Old Bisbee, it's in Warren.
Yeah, it might be different.
So that might have made a difference to
the,
the.
the department, the fire officers yesterday said that's one of the problems is that 85603 covers vastly different territories,
Mhm.
but in the eyes of the insurance companies, did I get
It's
this
all the
right?
same.
Yes,
They said it's all the same. I
Yeah,
mean, you know, San Jose or Warren, it's so different from,
it's so different, right?
yeah, from that, or Spring Canyon. I mean, it's just night and day, but apparently we're all lumped together, but
Well,
I
maybe
didn't have
that,
any issues at all
Might be
getting
good.
covered for this house
and that was in Warren.
in Warren,
Yeah.
yeah.
then maybe you and I can talk and you can share
I'll
your.
tell you, yes, who it is, yeah.
so I think, based on this, we should maybe table these issues until we hear what, because it's really gonna change, if indeed we have to stay with the risk factor that we have now, or the risk number we have now, that pretty much would go against the Department of Interior guidelines on the, at least on the contributing and significant.
So I'm not sure, I mean, from what I read, those alternate materials are allowed as well, provided that they give the visual effect. Now,
They give the visual effect, right, right.
they do make a distinction against the significant. So significant means something, and even though contributing is where the tax incentive comes in, and significant means something, I mean, the Munine House, I believe that would be significant. I believe the DeGravia House, I believe that's probably.
Yeah, I think that might not be on it, but,
The high school definitely was.
At the high school, there you go.
yeah,
Yeah,
the pithy and, you know,
So, and on those buildings, those features that we would be interested in still exist, honestly. Some buildings like mine, they were there, but I couldn't afford to repair them. I certainly couldn't afford to buy new. I mean, I spent a lot more money on those features than I had budget for anyway, just because of the market and a lot of other things, but, so I think contributing also has that label has an option for us to do different type of building materials as well.
It's more to it than that. I think there's other things that can be done, like if you went to the Firewise thing, right, there's a lot, big part of it is how you maintain your yard,
Yeah, it's
where you
clear.
stack,
Oh, absolutely.
where you stack wood, but also there's a lot of things that aren't being discussed here that are being discussed and employed in California, like outdoor fire suppression
Thank you.
systems. So I installed fire sprinklers on my roof that have an 85-foot radius. Big honkers, and I can turn them on through my phone. So if I have to leave the house, I can turn the sprinklers on and wet the yard and wet the neighbor's walls. So there's other things we can do, and, you know, as Firewise says, like, most of the fires start because embers end up in your attic or crawl space or underneath the house.
Mhm.
It's not so much, you know, flames licking the walls of your house.
Yeah.
It's, you know, leapfrogging.
I think they quoted 3 miles yesterday, so
Yeah,
Denver
so-
can easily travel
Oh,
3
yeah,
miles.
yeah, especially if it's windy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, anyways, I kind of think it's, you know, we probably should have a whole meeting on it, and
Mhm.
so we can get through this. I do have an item on here,
Mhm.
and I did email this in, but I didn't get it into the matrix. And that, we're missing a window category of steel casement,
Mhm.
which is what's on the high school, what's
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
a lot of commercial buildings that go back to 1930s, I think,
Mhm.
20s, they started doing.
I didn't put anything about steel casement on there, and also, Bob put in a request for, metal siding, and we've okayed that at times, and that would, and I didn't think of that one either. This was sort of just to generate discussion.
Okay.
Coming from the auto industry, there's some amazing materials that you would think would burn at the slightest hint that are totally fire resistant.
Mm.
So there are some breakthroughs that might help us.
And paints, so, yeah, there's special paints that you can paint on wood,
Mhm.
on plastic, that actually expand when they get hot and create a fireproof foam.
Mm.
Ooh, interesting.
What's the word?
It's-
Something
it's-
tumescent.
Yeah, it's a
Concumescent, is it?
Wow.
Yeah, this is a special, we used to use it back
Yeah.
east,
Yeah.
in industrial buildings.
yeah, and so you just paint it on, it's kind of goopy and,
It must look like hell when it goes, when it gets heated up.
oh yeah, I know, it looks
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it looks like popcorn
Your
every
house looks like a bunch of marshmallows.
Better popcorn than,
But it's,
scorched
You can always scrape it
It's
up.
mess.
yeah, I mean,
It's innocent.
it keeps steel from melting,
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you could spray that on the exterior of a wood house, and
Right.
still have your old wood.
Fire retardant spray.
It's,
yeah.
you know, and you can, any color, you can paint regular paint over it too.
Sounds expensive.
Yeah,
Well,
everything's
it's cheaper
expensive
than-
to protect
you know,
these.
a new house?
It might be cheaper than ripping off all the old beadboard and putting up hardy backer and stuff. too,
Yeah.
so.
So now I know
So
why
we're
my shower.
We will table this.
So we should
And the
table
siding.
all three,
Okay.
because this
Especially
is
enough
going
water
to
pressure to, it's a
impact
great
all
idea.
three.
I think
You know.
what John has
Yeah.
introduced is, okay, let's keep
Agriculture.
moving forward,
Yeah.
Look at my house.
but introducing another aspect.
I keep them dry.
Well, I do think we
So
have
they
to
don't
come
freeze.
to grips with
That's easy to do, you just bleed
the
the
fire risk
Yeah.
versus
where the valve is.
how far we want to keep the original materials and all that. I think that is a huge deal right now.
So I presented that as from my point of view. I'm just, that's,
Which is valid,
I
because
No, I
didn't hear a
think
fire
that's-
chief talk
yeah.
about it, I didn't hear our
Yeah.
lieutenant talk about it, but from my point of view, that's of interest to my insurance company, for sure. That's something that we've made sure in every case, that we present to them. And it's, although so far it's not been any help.
yeah, but I think it's a valid consideration
think it's
because of where we live
Yeah.
and what we've just seen happen
Right.
with old buildings on Main Street, you know,
Yeah, even brick.
even brick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
So because I think that in some cases, you know, like a metal clad wood window on a contributing structure would be okay. You know, maybe not on a significant structure, but on a contributing structure, I think that it would be okay in some cases, so I think maybe we need
Well,
some.
as far as clad windows, the tendency is that you cannot get the definition from the aluminum, or
Yeah.
maybe there's some that are steel clad, but you can't get the definition that creates a mutton that would match the
Right.
historic mutton, or the OG curve on the edge of some, you know, something, like if you look at the windows in the gem suites or the Carrick now,
Yeah,
they're very unusual, and you wouldn't be able to do those in aluminum clad, although there is a person in Warren who can make those. I believe it's out of some composite material, and
And they look close.
Brent Weller brought them to my office when I was in the city, and they're unbelievably close. So maybe that can be I think that they were fire rated, I don't know, but maybe that could be something we looked into.
So
It's
I-
very expensive, but it's less expensive than trying to do it out of wood.
I know the windows that I installed, the aluminum clad windows, they weren't a cheap window, they're Jeld-Wen, they're higher grade. They're garbage. They all stick. I've got one that won't.
They all stick?
They stick, they're
Yeah.
slow, they're hard to open, they're just not, there's better windows out there that have a very similar look for a lesser cost, that I just think those are, our houses are not worth that much money. I mean, they're not a Nantucket house, they're only worth X amount.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but actually, the directive, I know that there is something about the value of the property, but
It clearly says
Yeah.
that if, we don't care about you trying to make a profit on the house.
Right.
right,
The federal guideline says, look, this is not a profitability thing.
right.
But they are also very clear with, if it's not financially feasible, if it costs me more to build my house than the house is worth, I'm not gonna build it. And that's our consideration too. I mean, my house was gonna fall down if I didn't rebuild it.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. And if my labor wasn't free, I could not have afforded
Right,
to build
right.
that house.
Yeah.
So that makes me, something I want to say about the matrices in general. The way I look at it, I'm not sure the way other people look at it, but it's a great structure that still needs good judgment from the board, because there may be exceptions that make a lot of sense.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, that there may be exceptions, and it is good to have a matrix that's specific,
And, yeah.
but some wiggle room, because there's gonna be different circumstances in different properties.
Well, what I'm thinking is that if you're looking at a house that's at risk of burning because of the materials you use,
And the location, because that matters too, like where is it?
you mean within the town?
Yeah, like I think a house that's up at the top of Laughlin, for example, right in the middle of everything, if there's fires, that's gonna be more at risk than me on Tombstone Canyon.
Yeah.
And I have a stucco house, and they have a wood house, and there's different considerations for,
But if that, let's say in the worst case scenario,
Mhm.
if that were to outweigh the benefit of because the county is essentially paying owners to have a historic house.
yeah,
And if they're better off with materials that we wouldn't approve, maybe it's better to not have contributing houses. Maybe it's better not to, I don't know, that's something we're gonna have to, that's in the mix. I'm not trying to come to a conclusion right now.
It feels like we could do both. It really does. I
yeah,
mean,
because the carrot is the tax break, right? And the
That's
stick,
the-
and the
that's the
stick
key.
is the tax break too. If you,
Yeah, I think.
you can't comply, with the standards that are, and with what we decide, then maybe you become a non-contributing structure and you don't want to.
So I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Yeah,
Because I'm fresh off of it, the cheapest wood window I could find was $35,000 for my house, the full complement of windows. There's no way that
the
house
full,
could
yeah, to do all the windows.
There's no
Yeah.
way that house could have supported that.
Right. Well, I think that in that particular case, Mr. Green had the right idea. I really liked, he was on board, he just left last year. But he took every window, and I think he said he took a week for every window in his house,
It would take that.
and he rebuilt every window and put it back in, you know, that might be of value, but it's probably not within the skill set of most people.
Most people, like neither Philip nor I would be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
So we'd have to.
And so the labor in it would be incredible, you know, a week for each window, that's 35,000, you know, for all the windows, yeah. So that doesn't make any difference, but I think this is, what I like is that this is something we have to come to grips with.
Yeah.
The vagaries of reality versus trying to preserve this. I do think that this is the reason people come here, is that
Absolutely.
the historic, and it should, maybe it doesn't matter if it's, well, but apparently the clad windows aren't working either.
You know, their windows, they're not,
What would you have preferred?
I think just a straight up aluminum window they would at least operate, and they would have been half the
Is it the
cost.
wood swelling or something? Yeah, and I know that vinyl windows are susceptible to fire. They, you know, they sag and melt and let fire through. I know there's fiberglass and other composite stuff that maybe that's better, but that then doesn't hold that. Maybe we, yeah, I think it, well, I don't know what I'm just rambling now, but I think these are all issues we have to come to grips with, and then have a strategy for going forward.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more moving parts now that we're sort of aware of the fire that happened and aware of the insurance that one can't get.
And I think we're gonna get there on the insurance. I think there's just some misinformation that's out in the insurance world. I believe that we're gonna get there. Kevin has agreed. He's writing a letter to the Arizona Insurance Department. So he's painfully aware of what we're dealing with right now. I think in the background, he was hearing some of this. Last night, did we hear of 2 businesses that have been given letters of, they didn't call it cancellation, it was something to do with something like that. Yeah, not allowing them to re-up on their insurance. So,
And that might be
Two
one of
businesses.
them might be that hotel that I was talking about.
so I mean, it's out there.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
well,
Yeah.
I think
So
that,
I think that, Doug, everybody on this board is interested in preserving the historic integrity of Bisbee. I think that's why we're here,
Mhm.
right? Because we love that about this town, and that's what we want. But we realize that there's realities too that we have to contend with, so this is a good conversation to be had.
yeah, I think so,
Yeah.
I think it's great. I also know that when we've had some, you know, we've filled this room with people who are angry about decisions we've made.
Well, sure.
The Board of Adjustment, I think, has met 7 times in the last year, whereas most years they've met 1 time at most. So we've made judgments that people didn't like for whatever reason, but this,
That's gonna
and usually
happen no
those
matter
are
what we do.
economic, yes, but they're usually economic, and they want to keep their, and this is anecdotal, but it seems like they want to keep their tax break and, you know, put in vinyl windows.
Yeah,
I think that
understand.
can't happen,
No.
but it might have to happen if the only way, and I'm not saying vinyl windows because I know that they're not of any value, but they're the cheapest, but it might have to happen that we reevaluate materials in general and say we're going to be a hybrid of this. I think that the Department of Interior and SHPO would go along with us on that. I don't know if the county would go along with the tax break, and maybe that's not so bad. If you can get insurance and you can get insurance and you can get insurance, then that offsets whatever break I think that everybody's getting from the tax.
And if there is an issue of losing our official status and therefore the tax break, that has to be at council level. That's not a DRB.
Right.
I don't think the DRB
Yeah, right.
can say, well, to hell with the tax break.
No,
That has
I'm
to
not
be-
saying,
That has to be a
I think that's
council.
actually a county issue.
But
And
I
I
mean,
don't think we
the-
would not be,
The city council has to determine what's best for the city,
Yeah,
as opposed to us, and that's the city as a whole.
unless it was a referendum put to the voter.
Maybe.
I do think the city
Yeah.
council, not unlike what Lori said about us, the city council is interested in preserving the historic. It is in our best interest from a economic development
Yeah.
and
Sure.
from a tourism and, you know, quality of life. There is incentive to do that, to keep it, but are we going down the wrong, and this is, I don't know, but this brings up that point, are we going down the wrong path requiring that the materials meet materials that were 110 years ago or something? I don't know, and that, I'm open to it. I know I'm a sort of a conservative stickler, but
That's all right.
if we, you know, like,
That's all right.
I wouldn't fit into Britain, but, you know.
But it's a balance that, okay, if we still maintain the look
Yeah,
of what
that's
we
what
like
I'm-
about Old Bisbee,
That's what I'm saying. and-
but it's, part of it's made out of a vinyl or a composite window, and we've got an awful lot of hardy board
Yeah,
or whatever,
yeah.
and we get decertified.
I don't think,
You know,
I think that the
is that the worst thing
certification's
will ever happen?
important, because the brown sign that you see when you enter the city, I think
Yeah.
that's important. I don't think that necessarily would be even in jeopardy if we went to hardy board and aluminum clad windows. Let's say we found a really great one, and, you know, and, you know, certain shingles and things that kept the house from burning. I don't think we'd be in jeopardy of losing that. So therefore, that other aspect of it, the economics for the city, I think would still be covered. I think that's important. The reason people come here is important, and maybe that we can do, there's some compromise, I
And we
think.
can have a
somewhere.
different standard for what you see from the street walking by, you know, than
Yeah.
what you don't see.
Well, that is,
You know what I mean? And we
yeah,
can- you
some
know,
have it, you know,
yeah.
and I think it's,
So like,
all
we're
this
good
is
with
good
solar
stuff
panels,
for
as
Bob.
long as they're not too ugly and
Yeah.
big and sticking up and
Yeah.
moving around, you know. Okay,
Just
should,
just a quickie, is
Yeah.
there a, I don't know what you would call it, a forum where historic cities get together?
Oh, there probably is.
You know, there are probably 10 other cities having this discussion.
Well, I know that in Arizona, we could use SHPO as our sort of unifier, but I don't know of any. I bet you that there must be, you know, because there are so many historic districts
Yeah.
that if the chairs of the various, like the League of Cities might have some, you should look into that, Lori, about, or maybe Emmanuel could look into the League of Cities, whether they have an historic arm to it that where the chairs of all the historic boards meet or something.
So I have something to talk to you all about, which I was going to wait until the future agenda items, but I can bring it up right now.
Okay.
well, I think what we can do is table right now,
Let's do that.
table items 2, 3, and 4,
Okay.
and then go to future agenda items.
Okay.
So let me just go ahead and do that. Do I need to do each one separately, or can I group them together?
What do you-
You
Oh,
can motion.
Well,
I
these
would
2,
think
3,
do
and
them
4.
separately.
Okay.
Yeah. that's fine.
So, agenda item 2, I'd like to make a motion to table this item until a future meeting.
Second,
Okay,
five.
seconded by Mr. Gaffer, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all against say nay. Okay, the ayes have it
I move
unanimously.
that agenda item 3 be moved, tabled until an appropriate time to bring it back.
Okay, I second that motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. All against say nay. Okay, the ayes have it unanimously. Do we have a motion for agenda item 4?
Your turn, John. Motion for.
Just to,
To
yeah,
table.
till a future meeting.
I'd like to motion that we table that for a future meeting.
I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. That passes unanimously. And that takes us to future agenda item suggestions. No
Okay.
discussion. Okay, one of these items that I would like to suggest is bringing in consultants from the fire department to discuss materials.
Yes.
You're
Yes?
requesting that of staff.
Yes, of staff.
I have a couple of things.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Gaffron.
Emmanuel, are you ready?
I am.
Number one, I'd like the building inspector to make a statement on the construction fencing for the high school.
Okay.
That project is officially canceled, according to the records that I was given by Nina. So I think the time has come for the construction site to be demobilized, and I'd like a statement from, that's okay.
We could.
You don't know,
No, no.
No discussion, yeah.
I'd like, I'd like it to be an agenda item.
Okay.
And the other thing is that, I think Nina will probably put it on anyway, but if we could review the, annual report for '23.
Yeah.
That will need to be on the agenda, so make sure it is. It's, Laurie, you basically gave the thumb up. You didn't track changes, but this year
They were minor.
great.
Yeah,
So
there
we
were a
good?
few minor changes.
Yeah.
May I speak to, are you done with that?
I am.
Okay, may I speak to that, Emmanuel, on the high school? I think that they should make it safe. We should have maybe an agenda item entirely about the high school, and that their lights, their work or safety lights inside the building at night facing out are a detriment to the Dark Skies Initiative, and we should have them fix any violations that they are currently, and I think there's several that they're currently involved in. And so that would be a discussion.
Is the high school really part
We're
of
not
it?
discussing though.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, if it's on the agenda, then
yeah, then we
I'm
can
just
discuss
curious,
it, yeah.
it's maybe more of a zoning committee than the DRB committee.
Well,
Yeah.
because we're
I
in
agree
zoning,
with
we
what
are
you're
zoning,
saying.
but we can start here and then pass it on.
Yeah, it's a visual thing, Bob. A visual thing,
Okay.
seeing a construction fence for something for a project that's been canceled.
Yeah.
I want to know what's going on.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're effective with
That's
that.
it.
Yeah.
I do have another
Okay,
issue. I'd still like to discuss the role of contractors in meeting DRB standards. They
Okay,
should know it, and yet we continue to see things that happen that don't meet DRB approval.
Can you say that one more time? Can you say that one more time, please?
What was that?
Can you just,
can you
please?
speak into the mic and, so that he can hear you and
No, it's
record
not.
the
Can you hear me?
item.
There we go.
Yeah.
I think we should discuss the role of contractors
Okay.
and their need to be aware of DRB restrictions, if that's the right word, because I think they should know them, so that we don't have instances where people have something built that needs to be redone. And if they do know, I'm suspicious they still try to get away with some things. So I think we need to figure out how to address it.
Okay,
Thank you. Emmanuel had some,
I'm gonna say yes. So I met with I've been talking with Ariana Urban, who's the she's the local government coordinator for the Arizona State Parks Historic Preservation Arm, I guess you could say it. We were talking about potentially having a training session where she can come down here and give you, and all the stuff that you've been talking about at all these meetings, like standards and what you can allow or what you won't allow. She can give you a total workshop on those issues, and so you can bring you up to speed on what the sort of standards are,
yeah,
right?
We had, I'm not trying to interrupt, We had a session with the Department of Interior some years ago, but
Yeah.
while I was on the board, it was immensely helpful.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, we can do a new one since we have new
Yes.
people, and
Absolutely.
you know, we can have a specialized training. They can come down here, answer all of your questions. You can do it during a regular board meeting, but I think that you have so many agenda items that we have to have another special session. Or you could do a retreat at a camp somewhere. I mean, you know.
Camp Naco?
Yeah, Camp Naco. Yeah, you could, yeah. So yeah, study sessions, retreats. I don't know how many study sessions that they could do because it depends on how much we need in terms of training and updating on the the State Historic Preservation Office and what their standards are and their protocol is. Anyway, so I'm gonna have a meeting with Ariana probably next week. So if you would like to. Maybe everybody can start bringing up their concerns that they'd like to talk about, and start sending them my way. Quick little emails, whatever comes to mind. Just shoot me an email. You guys have my information, right? So yeah, just keep on doing it. I'll create a file, a folder. I'll start adding them to the list, and then we can sort of set up a meeting for the future.
A brilliant idea.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's.
I mean, I'm just thinking of the poor guy from APS. We had him up there for about half an hour,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and even for the wrong reason, the person for the historic preservation is gonna be there for days. I mean, we have so many questions.
We can retreat.
Yeah, no, like,
I'm always in favor of a retreat for any reason.
I mean, that was her words.
We
Yeah.
can't discuss that, but
No, we won't discuss it.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Do we have any other future agenda item suggestions at
Yeah.
this time?
I'd like to discuss the fire on Main Street and shoring up old buildings, because there was a fire in Douglas last year, and there's been really good news about the outcome of shoring up those facades.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know the city is very sensitive about this topic, but that doesn't make it less important, and per our discussion here. And it doesn't have to be something that's voted on, but I do feel it should be discussed.
And publicly.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, anything else? That seems like a lot for now. Okay,
seems like
10 people.
I make a
10.
motion that we adjourn this special session of the Design Review Board.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Taylor seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. All against say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Turn off the mics.
Thank you, everyone.
Lori, thank you for the.
Yeah, let me know how it goes. Yeah.
Email.
About the one, about the, yeah. Yeah, I went there this morning, I got everything, photos, and we're gonna get a notice of violation of.
I don't know why they put more in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we would like to take them to court anyway, so,
Yeah, there you go, please.
that's our process, but we'll start with that MOD and go from there.